Hey y'all, thanks for tuning into another video. So this one is about how we walk in the world trying to be good enough when we've already been chosen. And so when I think about this one, I think about how many times I got into a relationship or got into a position at work and I was spinning my wheels trying to be good enough for this position, right? I had already been chosen as the girlfriend. I had already been chosen as whatever the position title was. But when I got into the spot, I'm spinning my wheels to be good enough for something that I was already chosen for. And don't we do that often? Don't we get ourselves in spaces where we feel like the situation isn't for us, but we're still trying to prove our worth inside of that situation? Well, something that I really want you to hone in on and understand, which is has changed the way that I think about being good enough for years now, is when you were formed in your mother's womb, God thought so much of you that He created you. And not only did He create you, but He created the you that you are to be the only you that will ever exist. So when you really think about that, it's freaking overwhelming. Like your brain just goes, whoa, because there is no other person in this world who will move the exact way that you do, inhabit the world the exact way that you do, and affect lives the way that He needed you to when He created you. And so, because of that, when you spin your wheels trying to be good enough for situations that were never for you, what you're really saying is, I am blinded by the fact that I don't feel like I'm good enough in this situation, so much so that I'm forgetting that God created me because He thought I was so good and so enough that He made me specifically for such a time as this. And so, why do we do that? Why don't we feel like we're enough? Well, the first part of that is really conditioning. So, there is a part of your life where a trauma has happened that made you feel like you weren't enough, whatever that is. Be it childhood trauma, be it an experience you had in school, be it an experience you had older in life when you were, in your 20s. But there was something in your life that occurred that made you think that you weren't good enough. You know how I know that? Because you weren't born thinking it. So anything that you created as a thought process and something that's an inner core belief has come from somewhere because you weren't born with that thought process. So whatever happened to you or whatever was said to you that made you feel like you weren't good enough is the thing that you're holding on to and the conditioning that you believe to be true. I have so many experiences and examples of this, but one of the ones that I talk about often is how I developed an eating disorder and how I felt like my body wasn't good enough until I shrunk it, right? Like I thought if I don't lose weight, then my body's not good enough. If I don't lose weight, then I'm not pretty enough. If I don't lose weight, then this vessel that I was given isn't enough. And that came from childhood conditioning. It came from going to family reunions, going to the family functions, and people always talking about how thick my legs were and how big my body was, and just really thinking, wow, I'm bigger than everybody else. And because I'm bigger, I shouldn't be taking up this much space. So I'm going to shrink myself because that'll make me good enough. And when we do that, it inhabits our being. It becomes a core belief. And we don't just do it with our bodies, we start to do it with other things. So my voice is too loud, I'm going to shrink it. My thoughts are too big, they're too outlandish. I'm going to put them in on the back burner so no one else hears them because I don't want them to take up space. They're not good enough to even, formulate into sentences. So we do this to ourselves and we become conditioned to believe that it's true. And then when that happens, we walk through our entire lives believing that, excuse me, that thing that we were taught when we were younger is the thing that we should continue to believe. So then that's why you don't feel like you're enough, but what do you do about it? So when we don't feel like we're enough, we believe that conditioning, we go find people who will validate us as enough. And so we walk into spaces and we walk into places and we walk with faces that were never meant to be ours in the first place because that person walked in at the right moment and they said the right words. And even though we're having to abandon ourselves to be in that situation, that person validated our existence to make us feel like we're enough. And because they've done that, Now we're going to spin our wheels to continue to be enough for that person, forgetting that before that person ever walked in, before we ever made a move in life, we were created for such a time as this because we were enough. And so we're so blinded by trying to seek that validation from people, from external sources, that we can't find it within ourselves. And so we become this whole other version of us. Remember that God created us to be who He created us to be, to walk in only the unique plan that He has for us. But when we're trying to be enough for the people that are in our lives, we're shape-shifting into what they need, not who God created us to be. So you were enough, and now you've become less. You become less of the you that He created in order to fit in the spaces with the faces and the places that you think that you need to be in, because those validate your existence, instead of going internally and saying, God created me for such a time as this. I'm validated because I'm here. He put these gifts in me because He knew I needed them to be right where I am right now. But instead, we shrink ourselves and we go into all of these situations finding someone to validate our existence. And that same someone is telling us that we have to shrink in order to be enough, which means that we're either too much for them or we don't fill up their cup because it has a hole in it anyway. So then what do you need to do about it, right? So we know why we don't feel it. We know what we tend to do about it. But what do we need to do about it once we recognize it? And here's the thing that I can tell you. Once you resolve that you are chosen, once you resolve that your presence on this earth is enough to show you how enough you are, once you feel that, it doesn't have to come in this arrogant way, but in the most humble way possible. You can walk in this world understanding that He created you with the specific things that you have, to be the specific way that you are, so that you can walk and affect people the specific way that He intended for you to do it. Meticulously planned, being exactly who you are. Now, maybe you look back and go, well, I wasn't her when I was in my 20s, and now I'm growing into this person. And so how can that be true? Because when you were in your 20s, He needed you to be that version of you in that season. And now that you're in your 30s, He needs you to be that version of you in this season. And when you grow closer to Him and you grow closer to who you actually are, He makes you more of who you need to be in that season, because His plans are never mistakes. So when He created you, it wasn't a mistake. When He put you in the spaces that He put you in, that wasn't a mistake. The only mistake that's being made is you trying to fit your puzzle piece into a puzzle that was never intended for you in the first place. And so today, I just encourage you to remember that you were chosen. You were chosen to be in the family that you were in. You were chosen to be in the spaces that you've been in. You were chosen to be with the people that you've been with. And you were chosen to keep being exactly who you are, not abandoning any pieces of you, because those pieces are necessary for you to continue to walk in preparation for your next promotion in your purpose. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Remember to look me up on all social media sites and reach out to me directly if you'd like to have an individual conversation. Also, remember that when you get the information, it's great wisdom, but it's selfish to keep it to yourself. So make sure you hit that share button and share it with somebody that it can resonate with. I love you all, and I will see you again next time.